you guys for being here. This is my very first webinar. So just bear with me. But if we wait until everything is perfect, then we don't start, right? So we're starting, right? We're starting a conversation, and I am passionate and excited to share my knowledge and share about pelvic floor with all of you guys. So we will do a little bit of like demonstration, or like didactic, where we're learning. And then more towards the end, I will have you do some exercise. We'll call it exercise. So if you have any questions that pop up, put it into the chat and we'll get to all of your questions at the end. I just won't get to them when you put them into the chat. So go ahead and just type them in, and then I will get to those questions at the end. So as we get started, I wanted to basically name this the foundation of strength, because if anybody's had any experience with the pelvic floor, we really need to have a strong, stable pelvic floor to feel like we can be confident in moving, feel strong, feel powerful and unstoppable, right? So that is why I named it this. So we are going to just briefly talk about me and we'll just like pass this off really quickly. But I don't know all of you that well, and maybe you all don't know me that well. So just a little tidbit about me. I have my doctorate in physical therapy. I graduated in 2016. I actually met my husband in PT school. We were a platonic partnership of study partners. We turned friends and we decided, hey, this works. We're going to get married. And then in 2022, we got sick of the way things are done in regular, normal physical therapy clinics. So we started our company in 2022. And basically, I'm passionate about helping women of all stages and all ages. I really do like having the understanding of the pelvic floor and applying it to everything that we do, because it is important and wasn't always talked about. So a little bit about my process. I treat in person and online. So I kind of merge the two because it's way more convenient to do things virtually or online, or pair it to something that you're already doing, like going to the gym, right? So I want to pay attention to head to toe and not just work in isolation. So that means fitness. What's your fitness like? What's your nutrition? What's your lifestyle? What are your habits? And we dive into all of that. And then I keep that level of communication open, and I'm there with you guys like every step of the way. So this is why it works, and this is why I'm passionate about doing it this way. So a little bit about what we're going to be doing over the next, 20 minutes or so. Well, I guess this one's going to overview all three webinars. This one's going to be basic understanding of the pelvic floor. How does it function? What are some of the basic anatomy points? What do we need to pay attention to? Big picture, and then how to get started with that. And then next webinar, if you can make that one, it's going to be some of the things that can go wrong. Leakage, prolapse, pelvic pain, hip pain, back pain. There's so many things that the pelvic floor like touches that we don't even realize are pelvic floor dysfunctions. So why does that even matter, right? Prevention goes a long way. If you know that these things are pelvic floor dysfunctions, then we can work towards treating them. And then the third webinar will be generic, like how do we prevent, how do we treat? And then all of this is leading to an in-person workshop at a gym in Scottsdale, Arizona called Live for Lifting. And I think Liv is here. Liv, if you can unmute and just say hi, if I put you on the spot, is that something you could do?
Yes. Hi, guys. I'm Liv. I'm the owner of Live for Lifting. Sorry it took me a second. For whatever reason, it was not letting me log on my laptop. So then I hopped up on my phone. But I'm happy to be here and kind of work with you. And I made sure I let all my members know quite a few times. So hopefully they'll pop in soon as well.
Thank you so much, Liv.
Yeah, of course. No, thank you. This is awesome and super educational, and I'm excited to be able to offer something like this to my members.
I think that's a wonderful kind of collaborative environment because we can't work in isolation. Gyms, doctors, physical therapists, massage therapists, and trainers. I love creating this network that we can have this open line of communication, because if I have a client that's a member of yours and they have any questions or concerns, I love to be able to talk to you about it and make some little tweaks and then let you take them the rest of the way. So thanks for being here, Liv.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
All right, so as we continue here, let's talk about what we're going to be doing today. I want you to get a general overview of the pelvic floor. We are not going to geek out about every single little detail of every single muscle, nerve, right? That is not your job. You can do that later. But big picture concepts and ideas, what we're going to mention. And why does this even matter, right? Like, we are never going to just stay how we are right now. Maybe we have pelvic floor dysfunction, or maybe we wonder if we do, or maybe we don't. But our life is going to continuously change. So it's very important to keep that in mind. We're going to have pregnancy, postpartum, perimenopause, menopause if we live long enough, right? There's pelvic pain and much, much more. So we'll save questions towards the end. And if you have questions that kind of prioritize on what we're talking about today, let's go through those first. And then everybody will get the opportunity to set up an appointment with me virtually, whether it's like this or over the phone, for about 15-20 minutes, that you can ask me any question you want and get a little bit more specific if you don't want to share in a group setting, that you pee your pants. So here we go. So let's talk a little bit about what the pelvic floor does, right? It supports our vital organs, right? It's the base of everything. So if you think about our pelvis and how it's like a bowl keeping all the guts in, what are some of the functions of the pelvic floor? Does anybody feel brave enough to add those into the chat? What are some of the things that the pelvic floor does? I'm going to pause awkwardly. All right, nobody's being brave, but that's okay. So our pelvic floor helps with bowel, bladder, sexual function, right? And as we talked about before, it is also the base of strength, okay? So let's talk just a little bit about pelvic floor anatomy, the bony structures. So why is this important to know? I have so many clients that say, I have hip pain, and they point to this part of their body, right? This is more like pelvis. Here's the pelvis, right? They connect here at the sacroiliac joint. That's this thing right here, where the pelvis connects to the sacrum. Did I freeze? Okay, here's the sacrum. It's like a pizza, slice of pizza down there. So that's the sacrum, and then it connects to the spine. Going up this way, we've got tailbone. And if you say hip, here we are, where it's like that ball in socket. Can anybody let me know in the chat if I keep freezing? Because on my end, I keep freezing.
I don't see you freezing.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, guys. Okay, so basically, if you're going into the clinic and you want to talk to your doctor, and maybe you're talking over the phone with the healthcare provider, and you say, my hip hurts, where? So I will literally have people stand up and I say, show me where, and they go right here. right? So it is important to know, generally speaking, some of these bony structures here. Okay, so now we're going to go through to the pelvic floor. This is a nice, easy to digest image, right? This is, let's talk about this image first. So this one is as if you were at the gynecologist, laying on your back, feet up in stirrups, right? This is the top of your body. Here is the bottom. This is the tailbone. So if we can kind of orient ourselves this way. I just like to show these views because I hope you can appreciate just how like tiny, interwoven, and connected these muscles are. So we've got vaginal opening here, anus, urethra. So anatomy in males is a little bit different. They have an advantage, which is why they don't have as many issues with peeing their pants, right? Our muscles have to go around more of an opening, which makes sense, right? Compared to male anatomy. So this is actually kind of validating. I don't know, maybe to me, it's a little validating to be like, oh, okay, anatomically, we're at a slightly disadvantage for keeping those muscles tight enough to control the leakage. Okay, so this image here is as if I like scooped out all the organs and we're looking down at it. Here's the back, here's the spine. So this is the front of the body. We can see urethra right here, vaginal opening, and the anus right there. Okay, now if you look at some of these muscles, these are actually hip muscles that you can reach from the inside. So if I'm doing an internal pelvic exam and somebody has tightness, hip pain, kind of radiating back pain, sometimes and oftentimes these muscles are irritated and they're tight. They're just like any other muscles. If you've ever been like, oh man, my traps are sore, they hurt, you know, but you can kind of feel those knots. Our pelvic floor is the same way. These get knotted up, these get tight, they don't work efficiently. And so that's why we assess this, just like any other muscle group. So this image here, I just put this in so you can see just how sensitive this area is. Yellow are nerves, red is vascularity, right? So much nerve involvement here that one, if these muscles are tight and not efficiently working, you can kind of feel some burning, some sharp pain, and you don't understand why. But we've got a lot of nerves down here. And another thing on the positive side of this is that there's something in the physical therapy realm that we call neuroplasticity, where we can actually make changes to the brain based on what we do physically. If this didn't exist, I wouldn't have a job, right? You can make neurological adaptation to muscles where they can get stronger, they can recoordinate. You can do that pretty quickly. But over time, the more repetition that you do something, we're creating those kind of pathways in the brain. So the more you use it, right, the more it gets wired together, right? So we'll talk a little bit about this on the practical side of it when we do a little breathing kind of practicum here in a second. But the more often that you put these principles into practice, the more intuitive they become, the more instinctual, and you really can make some changes just by doing something repeated. It's just like anything that we try doing, right? Okay. So this part is really important to grasp. This is conceptual, okay? So we call the pelvic floor a floor, right? But is it really a floor or not? So the pelvic floor is actually meant to move It's meant to move with you. It's meant to move every time you breathe. It's not to be like a floor, right? So if you're thinking that my pelvic floor has to be so ridiculously strong that it's a rigid, tight floor to keep everything in place, we need to kind of reassess how we're visualizing this, because it's more like a trampoline. So if we take this into consideration, we've got like give, right? So if you were to jump on a trampoline, the floor or the base would give a little bit. So there needs to be some movement, controlled movement. We don't want to have pressure from above forcibly pushing downward, right? Or else that's what happens when we leak, or if you have prolapse, you know, you can kind of push outward. So if I were to say like, this was my bladder. Yes, this is a fidget toy that is quite pliable, but it's very fun to play with. So if this were my bladder, right, against a very hard floor, and I were to put pressure upwards, right, it has really nowhere to go. So the concept is that if it were like a little bit of a sling, right, we're giving a little bit. We're not smushing. We're not smushing those forces downward into the bladder or the uterus or other things like that. So all muscles in the body need to contract and relax. So contract is shortening of the muscles. The muscle fibers kind of go like this. That is a contracting muscle. And then they need to relax and lengthen. So the pelvic floor needs to have strength contracted and lengthened. So we need strength in full range of motion. Just like any other muscle group, if you only had strength going like this, but then you were really weak going down, yeah, you'd have problems. You'd pick up something, and then if you went to put it down, it would, you know, just collapse under you. So anything, if anything, just think not necessarily pelvic floor, pelvic trampoline, hammock, holding everything up. All right. So let's practice this, okay? We're going to talk a little bit about how to actually move or mobilize the pelvic floor. So if we take a look at this image here, so if we orient ourselves with this image, this is the front of you, this is the back of you, tailbone. Here's the base of your rib cage. Here is the pelvic floor. This would be like in between the knees. So if you're looking sideways at somebody like this, okay? So how does this function? Whenever we inhale, we fill up our lungs. So our lungs fill up with air here, and the diaphragm, which sits at the base of the rib cage, descends. So air goes into the lungs, diaphragm descends, and it compresses everything in here. So the pelvic floor has this relationship that it too also needs to descend when you inhale and fill up the rib cage. So we're going to practice what I call, or what a lot of people call, I didn't invent it, don't give me credit, is 360 breathing. So a lot of times we hear that we need to belly breathe, right? Don't breathe through your neck, like up here, if you're really stressed and you're like, right? This is a stress breathe. We need to practice breathing with the diaphragm. If anybody's a singer, a lot of times they've trained this way, right? Where you breathe with the diaphragm. And so we want to do a 360 breath all the way around the rib cage. It's not just the belly. It's not just the chest. It's everything. Okay. So what I would like for you to try, if you can, bring your hands out like this. like you're eating a sandwich, right? And then put it around your rib cage, right around here. Okay, so if I were to take a deep inhale, my rib cage is going to expand. Ready? Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Could you see how my hands kind of move out and back in? Okay, so if you're sitting, try to stack the pelvis or stack the rib cage over the pelvis. So we're trying to keep the rib cage over the pelvis, which makes the spine neutral. We don't want to like tuck the tailbone, right? So I'll demonstrate what kind of neutral would look like with the pelvis stacked. So see if you can see me here. We've got rib cage, pelvis. If I'm too far this way versus tucking, try to find somewhere in the middle and hold it there. So we don't always need to be in this like overly tucked posture, but we don't want to be like sitting like way out here either. Let's find an efficient stacked posture. Now there's anatomical variation in everybody. If you have an extra curvature here, it's not always a bad thing, right? Some people try to really correct this, but just do what feels neutral for you and the way your body is constructed, okay? So if we've got our sandwich hands around our rib cage, I'm going to have you practice inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the mouth, and I'm going to invite you to do kind of this guided pelvic floor practice. It's not like I'm a breathwork or a meditation coach, but I'll do my best, right? We're going to practice feeling the pelvic floor, because if we can have that mind-body connection with the pelvic floor, we can better control it. We create those pathways in the brain, and those get stronger. And the stronger those pathways are, the more that the pelvic floor is in our control. If we just kind of forget it exists, don't even think about it, this is out of our control. So we train so many parts of our body. This is one that is so important, but we don't really go strength train it at the gym, right? So after we do this practice where we're breathing, we're feeling for the pelvic floor distension, now you can apply it to everything you do. If you like to do yoga, apply this to yoga. If you like Pilates, apply it to Pilates. If you're at the gym repping out heavy weight on your rest, breathe, expand the rib cage, and let the pelvic floor relax. The majority of my clients have an overly tight pelvic floor. And so Kegels generally aren't the first thing that I would ever give anybody. So if you have somebody who just says blatantly, like, go do Kegels or a contraction of the pelvic floor, right, where you like pull up and in, and they didn't do an assessment, you know, like, don't do that. It can make symptoms worse. Okay. But breathing, practicing getting that under your control, and just letting the pelvic floor move and relax, that's very safe across the board. And I almost prescribe that to everyone, right? So if you've got yourself situated comfortably, maybe your hands are resting in your lap, on your table. You could do this laying if you're laying in bed, and just put your hands on your rib cage or your belly, or one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly, one hand on your rib cage. There's really no wrong answer here. I just want you to connect with your own body here. Okay, so I'll invite you to take a nice deep breath with your diaphragm. Feel with your hands that your rib cage is expanding in all directions. It's okay if the chest moves. Just make note of it. Try to keep the neck muscles relaxed. So we're going to just focus on our inhales right now. So inhale, expand, exhale. Everything should kind of come back to neutral. Inhale again. See if you can squeeze just a little bit more air in. Feel it stretching through your rib cage. Like this is actual exercise, you guys, from the inside out. There's no other way to train this than using your breath to expand like this. And some of you might feel that this is very tight. So I practice this in multiple positions. You can practice it laying face down, laying face up, sitting, standing. You can practice it in all hands and knees. So many positions. Practice this. Let the rib cage expand. Exhale. So what do you feel in the pelvic floor? Do you feel any sort of slight movement downward? We should have, when you inhale, a slight little inhale down, exhale, kind of comes back up. Inhale. Okay. If you're not feeling anything, even better for you to practice this because most of us will feel something. Okay. So if you need a visual for this, keep breathing. Inhale big. Exhale, let it recoil, kind of reset. Imagine that your pelvic floor is a flower bud. This is kind of cheesy, but bear with me, okay? It's a flower bud. And the pelvic floor, like your vaginal opening, when you inhale, imagine that flower blossoming. I know it's cheesy, but visualize it, okay? So inhale, expand in all directions, feel the pelvic floor, let that vaginal opening blossom. On your exhale, the rosebud kind of closes back up. It's not that drastic where it's actually moving that much, but the visual can help. Sometimes people resonate more with like an elevator. So imagine that your vaginal opening is an elevator, right? So when you inhale, it's like the doors open. When you exhale, it's like the doors close. So whatever mental image that comes to you and that helps you, that's what we're going to practice. Okay. So inhale, exhale. I'd like if anybody's willing to share, what are we feeling here? Is anybody feeling a descent, or are you struggling? Let me know. Or you could type it into the chat.
So you shared that you're supposed to feel an opening when you breathe in, and like it's imagine a flower closing when you're breathing out, right? I almost thought that it would be the opposite, but I'm glad to learn from you that it's like what it should actually feel like.
Oh, okay. So you're saying that it almost feels like before I said that you would have thought, oh, when you inhale, you should close it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a very common, like neurological, like we all have done that before. Like what does society tell us to do, right? I'll demonstrate. Society tells us to keep everything in, right? So we breathe in like this and exhale like that. Inhale like that. As opposed to inhale, exhale. So I'm glad that you can kind of feel that. And somewhere along the lines, if either feeling like we have to keep our bellies in, when we inhale, we kind of go and kind of suck in, right? So this is a disconnect between natural breathing patterns. If you have children and they're sleeping, watch their belly. When they inhale, everything gets big. When they exhale, kind of goes back. So thank you for sharing that. That's a good point. Anybody else? All right, we'll see you. All right. So this practice is going to be vital, okay? And I generally have so many clients do this in their life, in their day, often, okay? It's stress reducing. We don't realize how much of our pain, our dysfunction is tied to stress. So we've got, I can't feel too much, right? So if you're having a hard time feeling the pelvic floor descend with an inhale, what I urge you to do after we're done here is try different positions, because it could just be a positional thing. You can also, if you have like a big stability ball, sit on that ball and see, because the ball is kind of curved. Let that curvature of the ball sit on your pelvic floor. When you inhale, you could have that tactile feedback that you're descending a little bit. You can just stick your hand there with, over your leggings or your clothes and try to feel it. So if you try to find your sit bones right now, and then you go just inside, I'm doing it too, you guys, okay? So get close, like just to the side of the vaginal opening or close to your anus, right? And you just put your fingers there, kind of push in. Inhale. If you feel anything pushing into your fingers, that's good. It's reinforcing. You can also sit on like a towel like this, and sit on it like this way. Okay. And then that will also give you a little tactile feedback. Not gonna lie, a lot of people have a very hard time doing this right away. It takes a lot of practice. And if you're comfortable with it at home, you can always, sorry guys, if you're projecting me on a TV screen, but you can put one leg up, like in your bathroom, put your foot on the toilet and literally just stick a finger up and rest, take some deep breaths and see what you can feel. This is some of the at-home testing that I would have clients do if I were doing things virtually. I would have you either take a mirror where you could look kind of in the mirror or in the bathroom, breathe, watch, see if the pelvic floor moves. So visual and tactile feedback can help you get that feeling a little bit more. And then I would say practice that until you can get that feeling of it just descending ever so slightly. And then sometimes what I'll have people do is do an actual bear down where they push past, right? So that would be like what you have to do to like childbirth or if you have to go to the bathroom, we have to do a little bit of a relaxation with a lengthening. So voiding, like bowel and bladder voiding, is a little bit different. You have to relax. So that's one of the habits that you do is you sit, take some of these deep breaths and let the pelvic floor relax. Okay, anybody else having a hard time feeling it? Or are those enough suggestions for you to try that you feel like, hey, I can go and do those and try? Okay, I'm going to take that as a yes. So let's kind of finish up. I did tell you these would be short and sweet, but I do want to make sure that you guys have access to me, and I want you to get that. So take your phones out if you want to have a consult call with me, totally free. Just get my phone number, plug it in, text me, and then contact me in some way. And we can schedule that consult call and we can talk through your specifics. So I wanted to make sure that you all knew that I do that for everybody, because I want to make sure that you know your options. One of my passions is informed consent. with healthcare. So if you wanted to know your options, just hop on a call and we can walk through it in some specifics for you. And I might not be the best person for everybody. Okay. So I will tell you that if I don't think I can help you, I have resources and I can refer you out to someone else who might be able to. So any questions? And this, if you want to unmute, you can unmute or put it in the chat. But I am done with kind of the presentation portion of it. So we'll move into Q&A. You can leave if you need to leave. I know everybody's got a busy life. Or if you want to just text me your question later, totally fine. But I will stay until everyone has just left.
Well, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Learned something new. Sorry, I wasn't as talkative or chatty. I couldn't figure out how to open the chat box, but it was very informative, and I feel like you did great.
Okay, thank you so much, Liv. And
Yeah,
we'll
of
see you
course.
soon.
Sounds like a plan. I'll stay on here too, just in case
Oh, okay.
anyone's asking questions. But I hope you have a great rest of your night.
Thanks. Hey, Liv, if you want to, you can put info into the chat about day and time and address for your event at your gym, if that's okay.
Hey, yeah, let me figure out how to chat. I'm
Oh.
like old
We
when
can
it
do it.
comes to these things.
It's okay. I think it's November 14th. Yeah.
Yeah, for our
November
event, yes, on a Friday. I think what time?
14th. 4th, was it 5?
I think it was 5,
5,
yes.
yeah. 5 o'clock.
Okay.
Live for.
Is it call messages?
What?
Oh, it is in call messages. I figured it out.
Oh, okay. Is your Live for Lifting gym like live and then the number 4?
No, it's LIVFOR lifting.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And you have a really cool concept with all women's gym, and I went for a drop-in class and it was a very safe environment. I felt like I could make mistakes and try things and not feel judged. It was a really cool concept that you've built. So I love that we're going to be able to do that at your facility.
Yeah, it'll be great. I love our classes because they're maxed at 6 and it's a female-only facility. So it is a nice, safe space, especially for beginners who aren't comfortable working out by themselves, so they can be guided through the workout with a plan that works.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Well, awesome.
All right. Well, thanks for joining, everybody.